Hello and welcome to Talking Points. I am Sam Spurs for Life. This is Paxton Road TV, number 65 episode, and we are going to be rounding up the successful season, depending on how you look at it, for Spurs. You know, we have made it into fourth place, into the Champions League, above them lot, as I like to remind them all the time, and Antonio is the man. Quite easily for me, he's the man. Anyway, before we get into this show, make sure you hit that like button, smash the subscribe button as well, so you can get all the content from us coming through the summer. We'll be going over the summer as well. And make sure you share all the streams around and comment in the comment section below. We want to hear from you as well. I'm joined in the house, as always, by super guests. We've got Chris from Let's Talk Tottenham TV and Josh from Spurs Debate TV. Welcome, gentlemen, to the show. Are we okay? Are we still kind of like feeling on a high? Chris, talk to me. How are you feeling?
Well, first and foremost, thanks so much for inviting me on. Pleasure to be
You're
on
welcome.
here again. I getting into fourth. Kane will stay. Son will stay. Conte, if he gets money, will stay. So I was genuinely excited about next season already. And then this whole money situation, whether it's all spent on the team that we were talking about behind in the back room, is another thing. But it's still a lot of money that Conte is going to be able to spend. You know, they're not going to give him like 10 million out of 150, but so I think we can really. Yeah, so I'm legitimately, genuinely excited about next season and what we can achieve. I think title challenge is probably a bit far off, but certainly third comfortably, and I think get a big squad, a good squad in, and a squad that can compete on a couple of levels, definitely can win a cup or two.
Brilliant. Well, we're going to touch on quite a number of those points that you've mentioned already there, Chris, but let me just introduce Josh, get his thoughts. How are you doing, Josh? Welcome back to the channel.
Cheers, Sam. Thank you. Great to be on here as well. Again, big up Chris as well. And big up all the happy Spurs fans in the comments. And if there's any gooners in there, we'll find you out soon and we'll hang you to dry.
Flush them out.
Crucify you on the channel. So, feel free to hide in the chat. But no, big up, man. Massive, huge respect. Thanks for letting me come on and look forward to the next hour or whatever it is and get stuck into it, mate.
Definitely, 100%. We are going to get stuck into it. Like I said, it's been a roller coaster of a season. I hate using those sort of cliches, but it has. You know, someone described it as a roller coaster. I think it was Danny Kelly who described it as a roller coaster that was on fire, and that was probably about what Spurs were like. You know what I mean? It was some parts of it were absolutely unbelievable. You know, we just don't know what was going on. You know, the early part of the season. We'll probably start on that first. Let's start on the pre-Conte times. Let's go back to the summertime. You know, we obviously hadn't had Jose from April time. We had Ryan Mason in charge, because we put that quietly. Went all the way through the summer with nobody in charge. We didn't know what was going on. We had the likes of Antonio being touted. Then we was having who else? At one point, Gattuso was being linked with Spurs. There was all kinds of hashtags going around. No to Gattuso. We had Nuno mentioned. There was a hashtag going out. No to Nuno. Eventually, you know, it comes all the way back round. We do hire Nuno, Espirito de Santo. At the time, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't very keen on the move. I saw that he was able to do what he did at Wolves, but under a lot less intense pressure. I thought the job was going to be too big for him. As soon as I saw his pre kind of like, well, he's signing on sort of thing, where he did, you know, they do that like little mini interview. His eyes, you can see darting in his eyes. He just looks scared already. I was thinking, the guy's not even had a game yet, and he looks scared. And I thought, this isn't a good sign for me. He's going to be under a lot of pressure, and so it was. The style of football as well. We can talk about that, but let me start with you, Chris. When that appointment was made, and we did actually have Nuno, I think most fans will say, well, we'll have to get behind the manager. We waited so long for a manager. Did it feel like the right appointment to you?
No, but I was delighted that we finally had a manager after about 7 years waiting and looking for one. But yeah, based on Levy's comments that he said in the his end of season statement that we're going back to the Tottenham DNA of attacking football, and then he appoints Nuno, who's kind of Jose 2.0. It was just, very underwhelmed. But like you say, you've got to get behind the manager. I thought he looked genuinely excited in one of the press conferences I saw, interviews that I saw, that he was Tottenham manager. So I was slightly optimistic in that respect. And then We
Yeah,
had
which one you saw? I didn't see that one. I wish I did. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry.
And then we had an absolute stunning first 3 games, and then it went downhill. But the first 3 games, 3 wins, but the signs were there that we weren't going to attack, and you can't be winning 1-0 every game. It's eventually going to come undone. So it was just like Jose. It was a pointless appointment, I thought. Jose, you get him in to win a trophy. He gets one chance to win a trophy, and you sack him 6 days before. So he's not been in charge with a chance to win a trophy, which is what you bring him in for. So it's pointless. And then Nuno, 6 months in, or whatever it was, obviously if he'd have done better, he'd have stayed. But I potentially got Antonio in the summer, whether that's because he turned it down because it was too soon for Inter, which is what he said, or whether it was Levy not giving him what he wants. But then you get him anyway. Just go get Conte, and then scrap Nuno. So it was very underwhelmed, but I was willing to support the manager. But then it just got to a point where I can't defend him anymore.
Yeah, I thought that was a very strange thing that we touted with Antonio during the summer. Something went wrong in that. I say went wrong. I think possibly maybe Antonio wasn't ready to come back into work yet. Maybe he wanted to have a little bit more time.
That's what he said, didn't he? But then it seems a bit strange, but then you don't really know these things, do you? So
there's a lot, because I can't understand why somebody who doesn't want to take over mid-season anyway, and he clearly doesn't take over clubs mid-season or at least partway through a season, why he would say no and then decide, I want to come back November, the first opportunity. So what I think what happened was we were probably planning to have Nuno for the season, and I think maybe Conte would have come in the beginning of this season, but it went pear-shaped. I think it went so pear-shaped that they said to him, listen, we'll pay you whatever. And this is why I think that, the wages that have been talked about for Antonio Conte as being as high as they were, allowed him, right, well, I can do this. I've got a X amount of time. You give me this money, I'll do it. Josh, what was your thoughts? Because it was a strange summer after the Jose sacking. As Chris said, 6 days before final. We've seen what Jose's gone on and done for Roma. We've seen what he's done at every other club apart from us. What did you make of the summer?
So look, Jose Mourinho is the only manager that has not won a trophy at Spurs. Or sorry, I should put that the other round. We're the only club that have not given him a trophy or won a trophy with him. But everyone now, because Roma won obviously yesterday, so we're the black spot on the record, that hasn't got a trophy next to it. But it was a weird summer because Jose was always gonna potentially get us a trophy, which he nearly did. It's not his fault he got sacked. You could argue it's his fault to the point where he may have lost the dressing room and certain big name players like Toby and Bell and certain cliques forming in the dressing room against him, so-called senior players reporting upwards via Lloris and Kane, saying this man's no good, and then Levy doing the honourable thing. You could argue that Levy was trying to save some money because apparently Jose's contract had a trophy-winning reward in it. There was about 3, 4, 5 million there if he won a trophy with Tottenham, which doesn't make sense because why hire him if you don't want a trophy? Because he's the trophy magnet. So again, doesn't make sense. Too many conspiracy theories. And then obviously the whole way the season ended with us finishing 7th in the ECL, which was just embarrassing. And Jose loves the ECL because we finished with him in the ECL and then he went and won it. So, it was just a mad roundabout of events. And then obviously going into the summer, the key decision that Levy got right, whilst he may have also obviously got some wrong, the key one he got right was Paratici. And, we went round and round the houses looking for managers. We went for Conte. We went for Erik ten Hag. We went for, apparently Potter. We went for Brendan Rodgers. And it was just embarrassment after embarrassment after people stopped talking to me. They're like, Spurs, I'm talking to you. They're like, no one talks to Tottenham, mate. No one wants to know you guys. You know what I mean? Even people that didn't know about football, like, oh my God, Tottenham have gone for their 6-7 manager. It's so embarrassing. But when we got Paratici in, I felt that's when we started turning the corner a little bit, in the sense that Paratici obviously knew Conte from his Juve days. It feels like they had a conversation. And my personal belief is Conte's turned around and said, I'm not coming Spurs. Tottenham is not a club I want to manage because they're not in the Champions League. I don't know this Daniel Levy bloke. I'll speak to you in 3 months. Something along those lines. I'll speak to you in a few months, mate. They're pals from back in the day. So I'm sure they talk to each other all the time. And then I think The Nuno appointment was a shocker. It was a lastminute.com thing. The man's never won a trophy, really. He's not really done anything of major, like, something you could talk him up about. So he was a very, very low profile appointment off the back of Jose, who was one of the most expensive managers we've recruited. And you're sitting there going, where are we going as a club? We won the first 3 games and we're sitting top of the table, which didn't reflect on paper the way we were playing. And then we lost 3-0 to Palace, 3-0 to Arsenal, and 3-0 to Chelsea. 3-0 to United, wasn't it? The El Sacico. The three
games in a row that we lost, because we won the first 3 games, we lost the next 3 games. That was Crystal Palace, Chelsea,
and we lost them all 3-0. Didn't we? Arsenal
we lost 3-1. But
3-1.
There was all 3 goals scored against us. We scored 1 goal in the first 3 and then conceded 9 in the next 3. And then it was 2 wins and then another 2 losses. Out of the 10 league games that Nuno played, it was 5 wins, 5 losses, 9 goals scored, 16 conceded. It was so messy.
His win percentage was 47%, I remember reading at the time, which was the same. Yeah, which was the same as Wolves, and we're not Wolves. So, the writing was on the wall. And I think the likes of Kane, dropping his toys, not wanting to be at the club didn't help Nuno, and it didn't help the Spurs players, because he is the main man. He's our go-to man. Even for Sonny needs him. It was just a mess. It was just a mess, Sam. And we sat there at the beginning of the season thinking, what the hell is happening to our club? We're about to lose Kane, and we've got Nuno in, and we're in the ECL, and it's all looking all like we're going to finish top 8 again, if we're lucky even, with the football we were playing. We had the lowest stats. We had lower than Norwich on the fewest shots per game. We had lower than Norwich and Watford and teams like that. So it was very embarrassing. But you know what, Paratici, credit to him. He's obviously got into Conte's head. He's obviously been the middleman, which is his job anyways, as a sporting director, to link the club's ownership with the bit below it. And he went and done a great job by getting Conte to come. Levy, if there's any credit due, he's obviously put the money down. And apparently Conte wanted his whole team, and he's gone, all right, there you go, there's the money. Conte came out in an interview just 3 or 4 days ago and said Daniel Levy was great in the summer. Sorry, great in January to me. He didn't ask me too many questions when I came in. He didn't give me a target. He just asked me what I wanted. And then obviously they followed up in January with 2 unbelievable signings. I remember being on your show, calling it a 7 out of 10 window. And I'm glad I did, because I would have had egg on my face if I called it a 2 or 3, which some people were calling it, saying they're Juve rejects. So it's been an unbelievable season for Spurs fans, not only from a footballing point of view, but also from a point of view of where the club was almost about to collapse with losing our best player in Harry Kane and finishing outside the top 6. But we're sitting here in 4th smiling. So what an amazing turnaround of events.
Can you see it, people? That's been like this ever since the North London derby. Before the North London derby, in the preview show, if you watch our preview show, we were really going for it. There was 1 or 2. No, I said there was 1 person, Darius 3K. He wasn't going for it. He was a bit negative, but we pulled him round by the end of the season. Anyway, we knew that, going into the end of it with Antonio, it was the massive difference. But going back to what you were saying and touching on the early part of the season, Josh, and Chris, I want to talk to you about it. We had 10 league games with Nuno, as I've talked about earlier. 5 wins, 5 losses. The football was horrendous. We look back now, and our goal difference at that time was what, -7, I think it was, -7, and we've ended up in +20, whatever it is now. A massive turnaround in terms of goals. We were bottom, as you were saying, Josh. Running stats, terrible. Shots on goal, shots on target, bottom of the stats. It was just fortunate that we won them first 3 games, because had we not, we would have been in some serious problems. But in terms of what you saw, because the football itself, you might say, oh, if it's winning football the first 3 games, do you think, and I'll ask this, and this is just a question you can ask, because I know what my answer was. Do you think the decision to get rid of Nuno was too soon, or was it exactly the right time, based on the fact that, as he said, he had the same sort of winning stats he did at Wolves? So what was we expecting?
I think the Levy out chance at the United game in the incessant booing when Moore went off kind of forced Levy's hand. I thought when Nuno got appointed, the plan was a short-term deal, 2 years left. Pochettino had 2 years left. Pochettino will obviously cheer the fans up. So Nuno's a short-term appointment, steady the ship. Poch can come in and try and finish what he started. Obviously, 6 months in, the boos at the United game, he had to do something, I think. And I think that's kind of forced his hand, changed his... he could have easily given it to Mason again on, a year and a half or whatever, but that would have carried on the boo. So I think he brought Conte in to appease the fans a little bit, get a winner in. And then hopefully it's all turned around and Conte's now forced him into spending money and doing what Conte said. The comment that Josh mentioned, I think he said something about along the lines of in January, it's difficult to listen to a manager 100%, but that's what they did, which we've never heard from a manager at Tottenham before, Levy listening to the manager 100%. So it's kind of a blessing in disguise. Who'd have thought a 3-0 battering by a terrible Manchester United team could have been one of the best things that happened in our season? But in terms of the football, it was dross. And you got Kane and Son, who two of the best in world football, not getting a sniff of the ball. There was no link between the midfield and the strikers. So they were just completely going missing. This is when Kane wanted to leave anyway. That's not going to help him want to stay. It's like Man City playing. We're playing a counter-attack game. They're going to have more of the ball. We've got the best passes in the league, but we're not going to have the ball. Or Liverpool saying, no, we're going to defend and try and win 1-0 when you've got that front line up there. It was just absolutely bizarre and just really, really strange. Whereas you think Pochettino, all that, well, the front four at the time, Ali, Son, Kane, Eriksen, you go do your stuff. The rest of the team will keep us compact. So if we lose the ball, we're not outnumbered. And even Jose, a defensive manager, but with the foresight, we're defensive, but Kane and Son are going to get our goals. We need to get them in the game. And Nuno just almost, he might as well have not played him, really. He completely isolated him. And it can't have... I imagine if you're a striker or an attacking player and you're not getting any of the ball, you're fairly fed up with your football. And then losing games is just going to make it even worse. And yeah, the turnaround that we've had, certainly in 2022, either one of the best or the best goal scorers in the English leagues. And you can see Kane and Son are enjoying their football again now. And it's Kane and Son are our best players. You've got Kulusevski in there now, so we've got a brilliant treble up top as well. And then he's also in that. They're the ones who are going to get our goals, get them in the game. And yeah, it's no surprise that we're scoring goals for fun when the mentality, not just the winning mentality, but the mentality of we're not a defensive team, we're going to go and try and win games, has changed. And Nuno didn't help himself, but I think Levy's hand was forced with all the boos and the Levy out chants that haven't happened before. But yeah, Nuno didn't help himself at all by having two of the best players forwards in the game and not using them at all and almost isolating them.
Chris, can I just add to that then? As I said, Nuno had to go. For me, we'll talk about El Sac, because El Sacico, as it's now been dubbed, has got to be talked about as a game, because it's one of the best games I think we've ever had in our lifetimes, if we look back what we could achieve. Anyway, my point I was going to make was Nuno wasn't helped with some of the players. We know that we didn't have Kulusevski and Bentancur because they didn't come till January. We had Tanguy, we had Lo Celso, we had Dele Alli, we had the likes of Harry Winks, we had Skip, obviously he was injured, so he had him, but we had players that weren't playing that great. The likes of Sanchez, the likes of Ben Davies, Dyer. You can think of the wing-backs, Matt Doherty, Reguilon, Soso, Sessegnon weren't really doing much at all. Yaphet Tanganga weren't really doing much. Lucas Moura does what Lucas Moura does.
Dele Alli.
There you go, Dele Alli. Harry Kane wanted to leave, came back. Oh, bloody hell, it's Nuno in charge. I ain't doing nothing here. Son, what can I do with this? I'm not a man, but I can't do everything. He was totally wiped out of any sort of cohesion, any sort of players.
I think not his fault, but if you're a football player and you've got, will you listen to Nuno or will you listen to Conte? Conte demands respect. And I think you can't go all out like Joe say, the bad cop kind of routine. The players like Ibrahimovic, Terry, Lampard, Rooney's kind of not really in the game now. You can't just scream and shout at these prima donnas, but I think Nuno is probably too much of a nice guy, probably Poch as well to an extent towards the end. So if they're not pulling their weight, it's like, oh, come on, guys, come on. Whereas Conte is, if you don't pull your weight, you're out. You can train in the reserves. And there's
you know what?
And people will listen to that because it's Conte saying it. Whereas Jose, I think, went the other way. Like, you make a mistake, get along the wall, I'll get the firing squad, I'll shoot you in the head, and you've got to have that balance. And I think Nuno was too nice, Jose was too strong, and both of those extremes, I think, not alienates players, but players like, I've got all this money, I don't need to listen to this. Whereas Conte has struck that right balance, and I think that's one of the many reasons why he's such an elite manager. And Klopp and Pep, I think, have the same kind of.
Josh was going to say something. There was a point.
I was just going to say when Poch came in, I remember thinking, right, this man hasn't really won anything. You know, he's not come from a huge, he's not come from an elite background. Espanyol, Southampton, and people were wary of Pochettino. A lot of people calling the board out for recruiting him, saying, they've gone for a less of a name. And then look what Pochettino done. I mean, yes, he had a younger squad, a younger Kane, a younger Son. He had Toby, Walker, Rose, different players. About 7 or 8 different players, and he got blood out of them. He got blood out of them, and we got nearly won the biggest prize in football, in club football. But I mean, when Nuno came, there's a part of me saying, look, Poch, we gave him a chance. The man got a step up in terms of coming to a big club, and he stepped up. And the players stepped up, and bang, it was a brilliant few years with Poch. I was kind of sitting there going, Nuno, what have you got? Now you're at a big club. You've got the big name, you've got the big badge, you've got the players, you've got, you're out there on show. What can you do? And it became evident. Yes, we were top of the table with the 3-1-0 wins, but it became evident that this man doesn't have a style of real clear football and a philosophy that's changing anything in a positive way. And the fan base started turning on him, because the stats just were not there. Like at the end of the day, if you watch football and it's boring, you could sometimes look at the stats and go, do you know what? We had 5 shots on target. It was boring, but we scored a goal. It was boring, but we won. But when it's the other way around and you're watching and saying it's boring and there's nothing else to fall back on, he hung himself in that job. He had to go. But there are examples in football where you can bring in a manager like we did with Poch, and he's not come from the big background, and it works. And I don't know if Levy was thinking maybe second time round this Nuno could do something, but it was very evident within 5 or 6 games that Nuno didn't have a philosophy or a real style of football. And the biggest, clearest sign of that is when the players don't know what they're doing. There was no style of play. There was no real pattern to the way we were playing. It was so disjointed, and it was just lacking any kind of quality. And he had to go, man. So it was a poor decision from Levy, a really poor decision.
I still think the Nuno thing was really a stopgap. I really don't think it was a long-term vision for Spurs. I think if they could have got away with 1 season, they would have got away with 1 season. I think because of the COVID situation that we came out of, we didn't have the money necessarily to spend in the transfer market as we're probably going to be doing now. But that was because I don't think they knew all the details of how the finances were going to work out. Things have changed. And I think things have changed because they brought in Conte partway through. So the money obviously must be there, because they didn't bring Conte in saying, well, I don't think this guy's going to get 4. They got him in because they thought, right, he can get top 4. So if he does get top 4, we are going to be able to plan our next step and then go forward with what we're doing. So I always think this Nuno was a bit of a stopgap. I have a little bit of sympathy for Nuno because those players, even Conte struggled. Remember the Burnley meltdown that he had. Remember the games that we played in that Conference League where he struggled to get some of these players playing. We lost games with Conte. I don't think everything was a bed of roses, because it wasn't. But what I think Conte had was, right, I know what I need to do to get these players to the next level. I know what I need to do in order for us to achieve success. There was no foundations for Nuno to be able to do any of that. And given the problems that he had, I don't think he had anything to fall back on. Yeah, he had a lot of players that he could have relationships with at Wolves because they were Portuguese connection, but he would have had to develop so much more of a connection with these players. I don't think he had the time to do it because the results weren't going his way. And as you all been saying, the results were terrible.
In terms of that sympathy part for Nuno, if Kane doesn't play, doesn't want to play, is not interested in playing, his head's elsewhere, how would Conte manage that? Because Conte without Kane would have a problem because of the importance of the man, the quality that he brings. So there is a little bit of sympathy there because Kane decided before Nuno that he wasn't having it because he had his beef with wanting the Manchester City move. So Nuno kind of any manager with a Kane that's not up for it is going to struggle. It's just that he didn't have a plan B, did he?
No,
and
he didn't.
You could
He's
see
he's also at a disadvantage because Kane loved Jose, didn't he? So you go from Jose, who's won everything in the game, to Nuno, who hasn't won anything. It's very underwhelming for us fans. It's probably underwhelming for Kane, and now you've got Conte, who's won all sorts of stuff as well, and makes a habit, and is well known in football for taking teams who aren't finishing anywhere near the top, and then 9 times out of 10 gets them to win a league. So I think for Kane, it was very
steady, Chris. I know where you're going with that. Steady on now.
I meant Inter Milan. So I think for Kane, and certainly Kane wants to win a trophy. You get, like I said, Jose in to win a trophy 6 days before. You get rid of him, get in a guy who's never managed before against possibly one of the greatest managers in history. I mean, we only lost 1-0, but there was no real chance of us winning that cup without Jose. Just because Jose would have had a plan, and Mason was completely out of his depth and almost thrown under. Levy could have ruined his career before it even got started if we'd have been topped 6-0 in that final. And I think for Kane, it's just, this is the attitude of the owners. This is the ambition: save money rather than win trophies. And I just want out. And now we've got Conte. Okay, maybe the ambition is slightly different. That we're in Champions League now. This 150 million. Kane will know more than us where that money's going. Where it is going, I'm not sure. But yeah, so I think Kane was just really underwhelmed by the appointment and probably annoyed and frustrated that we've gone from an elite manager who wasn't an elite manager in the past, but then he's won a cup now, so he's back to winning trophies. To someone who, like you said, Josh, completely out of his depth.
Do you know the thing about Kane, guys, at the time, whilst we're talking about it, at the end of that Jose era, he came out and he said he wanted us to be men, and not all of us could do it. Not all of us could step up and be men. That's what Kane said after Jose. And that gave me an insight that what Kane's basically saying is that these players I'm playing with are not good enough mentally. They're not good enough mentally to fight and win, you know, in those difficult, hard, tough games. So I think Kane had made his mind up before Jose had even left. I think he'd made his mind up, you know, that he was going to leave because he could see Jose's trying to get blood out of these guys. They don't want to give it. He's thinking, why should I hang about? And he was gone. You know, he wasn't gone. He was nearly gone. But if Kane had it his way, like he said to Gary Neville, I would love to play with De Bruyne and win the Premier League. So, you know, like we owe Kane a little bit of homage for kicking off, because by Kane kicking off, it's given a signal to the board that your best player, your blue-eyed boy, Mr. Spurs, is not happy. So we owe Kane a little bit of credit as well for throwing his toys around.
Yeah, you can look at it that way. You can. But again, we can also look at it the other way. Was Son didn't do that. You know, Son, again, for me, is a player that clearly can go anywhere in the world as well. Like Kane can. I know Kane's that target man, and he had that ideal move to City. But I still think, if I'm honest with you, if I was going to sell one of them in the summer, it would have been Harry Kane anyway. I would rather keep Son because of his all-round game. That's just me personally. So as much as Harry Kane did what he did, and I'm probably thankful that he did do that, you've got to think to yourself, if every player in our squad started to do that, who was on sort of level, you know, we're going to have a lot of problems. So we need that level of professionalism. We do need players to show their frustrations at times, but also to perform, because ultimately they're getting paid. It's not like we said, "Oh, you're not getting paid anymore, Harry." No longer getting you 200 grand a week. Remember, he's still getting paid that. So I want to see professionalism, because if we did that at work, we're getting sacked.
He went about it the wrong way, didn't he? Like
just slightly. Yeah. I think it was
his point was right, but the way he went about it was wrong. And if this has been anyone in football that not a Spurs player, we'd have been going mad saying it's disgraceful and all of this. So we have to do that with Kane as well. And
that's why I'm taking that stance with him, because at the end of the day, players do it. And I'm not saying that no player, we're never going to forgive him, because players ultimately are almost tied to a club unless they can get out of it by the club terminating or deciding to sell. you can throw your toys out, but ultimately a club can keep you against your will, regardless of what you do.
Guys, what I would say though, Gareth Bale spent a season with Harry Kane there, you know, in the dressing room day and night. Well, maybe not night, I hope not, but at least in the daytime. And God, I've lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, he must have thought about, this guy's gone Real Madrid, forced his way out the club, more or less, you know, kicked off a little bit, got his agents involved. He's on the phone to his brother Charlie. Come on, get it going, mate. Speak to Levy, get the Man City offer in. And then he's thinking, Modric has gone over there, won, you know, Berbatov's won. He's sitting there thinking, I'm 27 years old, 28 years old. Do I want to hang around? So I can understand from an ambition point of view, he's sitting there thinking, is this the only way out of this club? Is to kick off? Because obviously that's what previous history has proven to be the right way. But what he didn't realize is he signed a 6-year contract. That small
without
bit
a
of
release
information.
clause, without a minimum
without
release
without a clause, man. But I think the Kane one's very debatable both ways, because I can emotionally, as a fan, you can understand he's a winner, but professionally speaking, if you've got to work anywhere you work and they're paying you that sort of money, let alone a normal wage, you can't take more than a day off, you know, if you're sick or whatever. But he just pretty much went AWOL, didn't he?
Yeah, footballers live in a bubble, live in a world. Sorry, Chris, go on.
The other difference between Modric, him, and Bale is that eventually Real Madrid paid what Levy wanted for Modric and Bale. So really, Kane should obviously be angry with Levy because, you know, he hasn't lived up to his promise, and you know, but he should be angry at Man City. Man City have got more money than anyone other than Newcastle, can afford 150 million if they really want, and they were bidding essentially like an insult. And Kane goes on about the gentleman's agreement, which is fine. He saw him and his brother coming with no minimum release clause or no Champions League release clause. So there's a gentleman's agreement that he can leave, but there was no money mentioned. So it's like me saying to you, Sam, I'll buy your car. You go, okay, that's a deal, and then I offer you 20 quid. You say no, I want this money, and then we go, but you agreed you'd sell it to me. There was no money mentioned.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not quite sure. I know we have to go by some of the things that are said in the media, but I'm not quite sure whether or not Daniel Levy was going to sell Kane regardless. I think
there'd have been 150. I think he would.
Do you think? Because I think he would have probably even turned. I think he would have anything up would have maybe 160, 100. Because I think he was going to play real hardball. I don't think he wanted to lose Kane because I think they knew what the plan was. This is what I'm saying. I think they knew that they had Conte in the back of their mind if things didn't go quite right. So I think if they lost Kane, even by selling him at 150, 175, 200 million, you know, we've seen what we did with 100 million. It hasn't quite worked out. Keeping Kane could probably recoup that money, as we can probably see by getting into the Champions League, however far we get into the Champions League, finishing fourth with the prize money, etc. So that money can be quite easily recouped. Harry Kane shirt sales for this season, next season, all the rest of it. It's going to be phenomenal. So that side of it, from a financial point of view, I don't think they were too bothered. But losing Kane, and I talked about that, was it going to be, if we lost Kane, is it more, I thought we had to keep him at all costs, and I think they did. And that has now shown to be probably the right decision. Whether or not 200 million could have bought us another Bentancur, another Kulusevski, blah, blah, blah. We don't know that. But what we do know is Harry Kane is going to score probably 20 goals next season at least, if he stays fit.
Well, he'll break Jimmy Greaves' record next season, won't he?
100%. And goals, to get goals in your team, we're going to need that. You can see that it's the currency.
Do you know, if Levy was a pure money man, just pure money, and all he wanted was money, I think he would have sold Kane at 120, 130 million.
Yeah, I think so.
And he would have blamed the player, he would have thrown him under a bus and come out with one of those kind of statements saying it was untenable and using all those magical words, you know, when a player forces himself out of a club. But I do give Levy a little bit of credit for holding his ground, because he's realised that if I sell Kane, the fan base is going to go nuts, first of all, and they're going to say I'm just money hungry. And number two is, how do I attract a quality manager when I lose one of our best players or our best player? Like, who's going to want to manage Tottenham without Kane? So whether it was clever, logical, strategic, whatever you want to call it, Levy used his brain and held on to Kane. And I'm glad he did, because without Kane, we wouldn't maybe have Conte, and we probably wouldn't be in the top four.
Well, I think Conte's actually come out and said something quite... close to that. You know, without Kane, without Son, this team is pretty much nothing. At the time, you know, when he took over, because he made so many gestures about, this is going to be a tougher job than I expected. Even with the likes of Son, Kane, Romero there that we've seen, he knew it was going to be a really tough job. So without them players, it's an impossible job. He's talked about that miracle of finishing fourth. He's now done that. Again, I've kind of played that a little bit down. It's not quite a miracle, but it's a very, very, very good achievement. But, you know, you're right, Josh. Without Harry Kane to sell Spurs, I know we've got the stadium, we've got all the facilities, we've got da-da-da-da-da. But your England captain, your player that's likely to go on and break all Tottenham's goal-scoring records, with a bit of luck, will probably go on to be the leading goal scorer in the Premier League. You don't want to just lose that player and not have that replaced with someone of equal stature. So, again, I have to give Daniel Levy a lot of credit for that. Let's just touch on El Sakiko before we move on to our Antonio time. That game, that 3-0 game against Manchester United, I think, you know, they had Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. We had Nuno, Espirito de Santo. It was long barrel names that day. And one of them was going to go. I think we probably, even if we'd have won that game, it probably was likely that Nuno was on his way out, because the appointment for Conte was very, very sharp after that one anyway. He was in charge for the Vitesse Arnhem game, which was 4 days later. So they had it in gear. They had everything planned up and ready. There was no way on earth after that 3-0 that he was staying. Luckily for us, it transpired that way. But I always say, I think the plan was in place and it was almost a matter of time. However, had Man United lost that game, there could have been some gazumping going on. So that's where we could have maybe been, you know, taken out. Because if Man United knew that we were definitely going to sign him up, and they just said, right, because they couldn't sack Ole Gunnar Solskjaer after winning 3-0 at our place. It was impossible for them to do that. Had they lost, quite easy to do that. But they probably looked at it thinking, oh my God, we can't do this, but we'd love to. I don't know. But Gary Neville's come out and said, nah, Conte, that's bollocks. If they could have got Conte was their player. Chris, is that the best game this season? Bit of tongue in cheek. Was that the best game this season?
Well, it's probably the most important game. Obviously, the Arsenal home game was massively important, and Burnley following afterwards. But it's funny, isn't it? You always see a loss as a terrible thing, and no one wants to lose. But it's possibly the best thing that happened to us this season, being that we got a guy who wasn't up to the job out. A guy who's possibly our greatest ever manager since Bill Nicholson, certainly in stature. Obviously, he's got a way to go to beat what Pochettino did, but he's got the possibility to be the best manager we've had since Bill Nicholson. A lot of people in the chat saying he'll win the Premier League next year and a cup. I definitely think he'll win a cup. And yeah, he's built a real team. We're starting to get a spine again now. So we had a real spine back in the day with Pochettino, Lloris, the two, Toby, Jan, and then Wanyama, Dembele, Eriksen, Kane. We had a real spine there. We haven't had one for a little while. We're starting to get one back. So yeah, I think I was furious at the Man United game, but like you say, Sam, it was inevitable he was going there. It was labelled as El Sakio just because it's, you know, at the time it's something for the media to say, it's something for them to create a story. But as soon as we lost that game, the boos that went out when Mora went off, man. It was. I was surprised, to be honest. He wasn't sacked before I got home from the pub. And it was a 10-minute walk for me. And it was inevitable, but. Possibly the best thing that's happened to us this season. Crazy as that is to say.
It's mad. Because you looked at that game, even in isolation, was a horrible game. And that had come off the back. We had
chances before they scored. I think Son had a 1-on-1 and put it over. Yeah. You know, that goes in, could be completely different. And then it's Solskjaer that's really under pressure. So it's really strange how these things work out.
But you have to remember how terrible Man United were for the whole of the season. Even up to that point, they weren't that great. They had Harry Maguire in defence, and he was rubbish. Their defensive capabilities, it was only because they had the likes of Ronaldo in their team that was able to just win games for them. But we lost twice to them this season. Don't forget that. They did a double over us, and they are.
We didn't the second time. We lost to him, didn't we? We didn't lose to them.
Yeah, we lost. That's very true.
The others, maybe, you know, 3 of them passed the ball to him once, but that's about it.
But the point I'm trying to make is there was not even some of the football I watched there from both teams was awful. It was an awful game anyway. I don't think it was a very good game. And it was a case of this can't continue. So even if we'd have come through that with a win, I just thought to myself, this style of football is not going to be sustainable. We can't just nick games. We can't go in and have 2 shots, 1 on target. We can't have no shots on. It was getting to that point where it was like, you can't watch this football. So when that happened, Josh, and we did lose the game, and you realised that Nuno was going to go, and then the announcement is it's Antonio Conte. What's your first thoughts?
Mate, I had a wet dream that last night, mate. I'm telling you. I wet my pants, bruv. I wet my pants. I wet the bed. I was swimming in it, bruv. I was swimming in excitement. Because when I heard the words Conte, I had to check it wasn't some other bloke, bruv, from, I don't know, from Azerbaijan or something. Do you know what I mean? So I had to go online and check. This is Antonio Conte, not someone else called Con and with a surname Tage. You know what I mean? I was trying to work out if it was the right one. And as soon as I got the news through that we're talking to Conte, I was like, okay, it's all paper talk. Is it true? What's going on? But as soon as we got him, we went on an amazing run. If you remember, we were in Europe that week. We beat Vitesse. Those 2 red cards.
We were winning 3-0. I think they came back. It was 3-2 in the end.
3-2. Then we went to Everton and drew. And then there was Leeds at home, wasn't it? 2-1, I think.
Wasn't it his first 10 games that he went unbeaten in the league with us? Something like that.
Yeah. And then
they were easier games, but Nuno wasn't winning those games.
Do you know what I was going to say? The Liverpool game at home was a big one because we should have won that. Obviously, I know Liverpool got the red card, but we should have won that 2-2. We should have won that 3-2. And that game showed me that Conte has arrived. He's not just, forget beating Norwich 3-0 and, Leeds. When we beat Liverpool, when we drew with Liverpool at home, I thought, okay, right, this is it now. This man is already having an effect on the players. They're listening to him. They're working with the 3 at the back. They're working in the system. They've got a long way to improve. But you could see Conte after that game was like, we should have won that. He came out and said we should have won it. Then we beat West Ham 2-1 in the League Cup, which was nice because we've been struggling with West Ham recently. Then we beat Palace 3-0. So everything was going well. I think it was Christmas or January, everything was going well. And then the wheels came off a little bit when we started playing Chelsea, which was a test of the squad. And Conte came out and said it, didn't he? He said it in January. He said, we're not nowhere near Chelsea. And a lot of Tottenham fans were upset with what he was saying, but the reality was we were nowhere near Chelsea's level. Chelsea showed us what they could do, an informed Chelsea with no ownership problems. And I think that him getting pissed off with those Chelsea results made him go to the board, or at least to Paratici, and say, I need a couple of players ASAP. I need a couple of players. I need Diaz, Traore, wherever you can get your hands on. I need improvements. And he got what he wanted, as per his interview the other day about January. So, it was just a phenomenal December. A slightly worrying January with the Chelsea games, and then a brilliant end to the window with those 2 signings. And since then, I don't think we've really looked back. We've had a couple of wobbles. I know we had the loss to Burnley and Southampton and Brighton. But on the whole, if you look at Tottenham's form from March until the end of the season, we've been up there with the best of them in terms of form. We even ended the season really well. The last 5 games, we picked up just as many points as Man City and Liverpool.
I think since Conte arrived, I've had only City and Liverpool have got more Premier League points now. So it shows the massive turnaround that he's made.
And if you look at the points difference between when Nuno left and the difference between the top 2 teams now, it's not much difference, which shows obviously, as you were saying, Chris, that we were on par with them from that point. But even I think it was from 2022, we were certainly accelerating away. But the points difference between even him coming in November, it wasn't even November, it was October time, wasn't it? Or late October, to now, it shows that Conte has that ability to pull this team through. And this is what I'm looking forward to for next season, seeing what he does with the players that he gets in, how we can develop certain types of games, because it's going to be important that we can play 2 types of ways. There's going to be a continental style, which we're going to need to play in Europe. And we're going to need to have that high energy, high tempo style for the Premier League. Different styles of players, it's going to make a massive difference playing Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday with high stakes. Europa Conference League wasn't really high stakes, and you can see from the players' attitudes, it's not high stakes. Champions League is.
I think we've seen evidence of that, though, in the last 4 games, because the last 4 games were 4 completely different games. And you know, obviously I wanted a win at Anfield. We should have won at Anfield. And at the time, I was like, oh, maybe a draw is not good enough. But any other time, a draw at Anfield is superb. And it's obviously been a good result. And I think that showed Arsenal, it's like, blimey, if they can go to there, they can beat anybody. And I think for us, it showed if we can go to Anfield and get a result and should be winning, restrict them to 3 chances on goal, we can beat anybody. So there was that game, which is, you know, we'll have a top team in the Champions League group who certainly away from home will have to defend really well. So that's shown we can do that. We then go Arsenal, which is all about desire in a North London derby. We definitely had that. The crowd also massively helped in that as well. And then when a team's struggling, we showed that we can kill them and tear them apart. And then we'd see the game out. I know they only had 10 men, but see the game out. Burnley, scrap, you know, is always going to be a scrappy goal, you know, having to grind that out. We've done that. And then Norwich, all we needed was a point. We obliterated them and made sure there was no if or buts about getting Champions League. We did it in style. So 4 completely different games, 4 completely different ways of playing and how to play in different opponents. And I think that has been really good. And like we said with Nuno, that, you know, the players, I don't really care. Conte's shown now, stick with me, I can get you results. You know, no one ever thought we'd get 4th when he came in because of how far adrift we were. He's now gone and got 4th. So that or now, when he says do this, I'll listen because he got his Champions League in. And I think it's been a huge turnaround and so many positives, certainly in the last couple of months of the season.
Definitely. And I'm looking at it with the fact that we've got some players in that squad who, if you flip back 6 months ago, some of them we didn't even want to be, you know, playing with the under 21s, let alone playing in this team. You know, I certainly wanted some of them out, completely gone. And I'm not gonna be ashamed to say Matt Doherty was one, Davinson Sanchez was another, and Emerson in recent times before his renaissance was another player that I thought we can't win anything with these guys.
But I thought Sanchez deserves a lot of credit as well. You know, certainly that Arsenal game, everyone thought, have I stolen your thunder? No,
I was going to say, all I was going to say was, for some reason, these players have responded to Conte, because remember, Sanchez was not first choice, and he's been out in the cold a little bit. Ramirez clearly taken his spot if he had that spot. And to bring him in with the X amount of games that we had left for that North London derby.
And crucial games as well. And I think the best compliment you can play him there is you didn't really notice that Romero was missing.
No, he was a bit nervous in the beginning, but after that, he and this is what I'm saying. I'm quick to not double down on players, you know, just because I thought he's rubbish. Oh, he's rubbish, even if he's had a brilliant game. You can't do that because the manager can't do that. The manager can't say, well, I know he's shit, but I can't play him now because he's shit. He needs to trust these players to come in. In the game that we had, that North London derby, probably the most pivotal game that we had this season, to have your best defender back out the game just before, that's not going to make, that's good, isn't it? It's not going to instill confidence. So the manager, I give him full credit for being able to bring that player in and saying, you need to do this job, whatever he said to him, because he did it. And the crowd were phenomenal. We can't forget that. That was the turning point for me. Just before we go, because I want to talk about that North London derby and just kind of move on with the show towards the end of the season. We've got 50 people watching now. We've had over 50 people. So make sure everybody that's watching, if you haven't done so already, hit that like button, smash that like button. If you are new to the channel, make sure you also subscribe, notification bell to let you know when the content's coming out. And if you haven't done already, join the others in putting your comments in the comment section below. Let's continue on. Right, North London derby. I knew. As I said, go back and have a look at that North London derby preview. I knew. I said, we're going to beat them lot. I said, we're going to smash them lot. And if we win, we are going to get top 4, because I knew Arsenal would crumble just for the fact that pressure, they hadn't played in that stadium with fans in there. Maybe 3,000 fans. Yeah, what? 60,000 fans baying for blood. They had never experienced that. I don't care if you've played 1,000 Champions League games or you've never played at all, you are going to be nervous. And those guys, as my mate Deji said, some of them looked like they were up early the next day to do their GCSEs. They were scared little boys, and I'm glad. Anyway, Josh, does that game define for you Conte, I guess, where we are as a club in terms of our fan base? Because I thought the fans were absolutely fantastic in that game, and you know, the ability from some of these players to actually step up to the challenge, knowing that not even a draw is good enough. We have to go out and win this game, and not only win, but probably the most dominant North London performance of any team in recent memory, from what I've seen anyway. What were your thoughts on that game?
Mate, I was there in the stands. I was in the East Upper, nervous like every other fan going to that game. I remember the energy on the bus, on the train, on the walk up. I remember seeing the Arsenal fans come in with their flares. There was about 6.5 of them. There was more coppers that day. There was more coppers than Arsenal fans, but they came along the high road. You know, I was there early. Me and my mate were there just watching it, thinking, right, look, they're coming in. You know, here we go. The tension was big. Harry Kane said it after the game. We felt the anxiety in the stadium. We felt everything. We knew how big it was. They started well. And I thought that first 10 minutes, looking down from the East Upper, looking down to my left at Sanchez and Emerson having a little bit of a dodgy 1-2s. You know, Sanchez a couple of times, you thought he slipped. He was losing his head. You thought, what's going on here? Sanchez, sort it out. I just need you to perform. And then something clicked. And the thing that clicked is the fans realized that this is going to be the only opportunity we've got to finish top 4. And we started singing. We started singing our hearts out. We started, bullying those Arsenal fans. They were to my bottom right. We kept waving at them, all sorts of signs and signals. We kept yelling whatever we wanted to say to them. The whole fan base was united. I've never felt so united in a stadium. I've never felt so at one with the players and with everyone around me. You know, it was like we've got 90 minutes, or not even 90, like 80 minutes, 75 minutes to push these lot on. Otherwise, not only are we going to lose the top 4, we're going to have to watch those guys all week run their mouths on YouTube, on comments, and everything. You know, it was just too much at stake. There was too much at stake. And it's just credit to every Tottenham fan, every player, the manager, the whole thing, man. The whole thing was on fire. And we literally just crucified them. And the energy we transferred into the players, I felt gave the players that extra bit to run harder, to tackle harder, to just leave everything on the pitch. And they did that by halftime. We went in halftime and we come out and sealed it. And Conte said after the game, he said, you guys got the third goal. You know, the fans got the third goal for us. And not only did we win the game, Sam, like you said, we shot them to pieces. Those guys went home in their bus, you know, probably wanting to cuddle a teddy bear or something before they slept.
They had teddy bears on the bus because some of them were that young that they had teddy bears with them, and they needed them. They needed them. I'm sorry, because
they must have kissed those teddy bears goodnight, hugged them, made them, breakfast, spent the whole day with them, because there's no way they were leaving the house, mate. Not after that performance. There was no way none of those players went out the house. They must have just sat home, turned the telly off, and just thought, shit, you know what? We just got completely battered and bullied, man. So what a performance. And the word Spursy was nowhere to be seen or heard, and shouldn't be with Conte around, at least, because I tell you what, we could have Spursied that up. We could have Spursied up Burnley. We could have Spursied up Norwich, but we didn't. So there's 3 times there we didn't Spursy it up. So screw you, Spursy, and screw you, Arsenal, as well, man.
Chris, I'm going to come to you. That game for me, I couldn't get to it. That's one of the games I didn't get to, because I went to the one before and I went to the one after. I went to the Burnley game afterwards, and it was like, again, I look at that Burnley game, and that's another game where a lot of people were saying, it's going to be a foregone conclusion because after that, Arsenal, there's no way, blah, blah, blah. But I said it's going to be a tougher game. I thought we'd win it convincingly, but it was even tougher than I thought. But the fact that we got over the line, even though it was a penalty, you look back at that result now, ultimately we can say, do this all day. We can say we'd faster won that and they lost that. But ultimately in that running, had we not won that and everything had gone according to how it's gone, we wouldn't have made the top 4 now. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? So how important it was to get that victory, it's going to go on. I think, inevitably, we're going to probably look back at them 2 games, North London derby and that Burnley game, as being 2 key games. Oh, yeah.
The DVDs are coming out, mate. The DVDs are coming out.
that might, and I'm not going to say this with a little bit, just to calm down. You might look back at those 2 games and say that really is the pivotal moment where Spurs have been able to push on. There's a long way to go, and there's a lot that's going to happen in the summertime and the next season. We know that there's World Cups to come and all the rest, and players could get injured. I know all of this. However, we've got to look at a situation and think, those 2 games, no results, no top 4. Chris, what was your thoughts on that North London game?
The North London one, I always thought we'd win because I think Conte must have said when they cancelled that game, we had all these players out. Conte must have said they were scared of you then. You hardly had any of your players there. You've got them now. They're scared of you now. You know, and the fans were never going to be quiet. It was never going to be like a normal game. So I always thought we'd win them there. I thought Son was brilliant. I mean, Holding was an idiot for getting sent off, but I think Son played him. I think as soon as Son saw the first challenge go in and then the suplex that he stuck on him, I think, right, he's a bit over the top here. He's too into this. I'm going to get the ball, roll it to my feet. I'll hold it up, do nothing, wait for the kick to come in. And then obviously the elbow was just ridiculous. I think the fact that he couldn't get Son apart from fouling him, wound him up, and then he just elbowed him. And that's kind of lost the game. But I always thought we'd win that game. The issuest game for me was the Burnley game because they were fighting for their lives. They're not going to come out and attack us. So it's going to be a scrappy game. And the fact that was before Arsenal's game to Newcastle, which I always thought Newcastle would get something out of that game. But I think if we'd have lost to Burnley, it kind of lets Arsenal off the hook on that North London derby. And so 100%. I think the fact that we battered them in that game and then followed it up with a win and, you know, I said about the Liverpool game, like, oh, they'll lose to Liverpool. They always lose to Liverpool. Oh, my God, they've drawn. They've got a good result. They've almost won. Oh. And then Burnley, it's like, oh, God, they get lucky penalties now. They see games out. And I think, as well as, you know, Gary Neville said, didn't he, they never recovered from the Spurs game, the mentally from what the fans did to them. And then you go to Newcastle, whose fans are just as bad.
Yeah, and let me just add to that. That's a good point, Chris, because I think in that game, even if we'd have won that game, had we won it, like say 2-1, and Arsenal put up a good performance, I think they could have gone to Newcastle having
a bit of confidence.
Imagine that atmosphere, and they come away with a 2-1 loss, but they played well. They could have then said, you know what, we lost that game, but we haven't won at Tottenham for a long time anyway. We can go to Newcastle. The fact that we were olaying and they were so embarrassed because, you know what I mean, their players didn't know what to do and their manager didn't know what to do.
Yeah, he was a deer in headlights when that red card happened. I mean, you might not have seen it in the stand, but you would have done if you watched it after the game. But like even live watching on TV, he was deer in headlights. He didn't know what to do. So that can't give you a huge amount of confidence as a player. You look to the manager. Whereas you look at Conte, he's always thinking, isn't he? He's always got some kind of plan for things that are happening.
You know, guys, we also have to big up the Liverpool performance away because that point meant we it was later after we beat Arsenal. That point came in handy because we put
I think that gave us a lot of confidence. We can go anywhere and get a result here. Whereas
we should have won it.
Yeah, it was under Nuno, we'd have got absolutely destroyed. And
that was my exact point about the Arsenal thing. Had we done, if they had that same sort of kind of like output from our game, I think they would have gone on to claim fourth because I don't think they would have lost at Newcastle.
Arsenal kept getting the first goal. If you look at their form, they kept winning from a leading position. This was the first time in very few occasions they had to come back from 1-0 or come back from 2-0. And they didn't know how to do it against Spurs, against Newcastle, even against Crystal Palace. So it just shows Arsenal's soft centre was there. It's just that they were scoring first and winning 2-1 here, 2-1 there by the odd goal. They weren't demolishing teams. We demolished teams during February. During that run, we were demolishing teams. We scored more goals in that period than any other team. Arsenal just kept nicking it here or there. They'd have the odd good result and they'd nick it. The first time they got battered properly, good, left, right and centre was Tottenham and Newcastle towards when it counted. You know, they got completely ripped apart. Otherwise, they had this confidence and momentum. And the other thing Conte needs to get credit for is the mind games he played with Arteta. After the game, he said, stop making excuses. Accept that you lost and stop blaming refs and stop blaming this and that and everything else. Just accept you were absolutely, completely battered. And then after the Newcastle game, if you remember the interview afterwards, Arteta said, oh, yeah, this game's done now. We move on to the next one. Because he knew he'd been called out by Conte. You know, about this excuse stuff. So Conte literally, not only on the pitch, but off the pitch, completely just dissected Arteta into pieces. And he's a little boy, man. You know what I mean? He's a little boy in this big world of Contes and Klopps and Tuchels and whatnot. And he tried to rub shoulders with the best, and rightly so.
Conte was also pissed. Don't forget that, Josh, because remember when they cancelled that game back in January?
Yeah,
I think that was a big mistake from Arteta there, because that's given Conte, the fans, the players so much motivation for when that game eventually happened.
And they should have played that game. It was the way that they did it, the way that they got out, because we were ready to play and we had the COVID thing going on.
They had injuries, didn't they?
Well, they did it because they messed up and sent people out on loan when they had about 3 or 4 players at the African nations. So they messed up there, and how they got away with it, I do not know.
I don't know. But the thing is, you look back at that point. Had we played them then, who knows? Who knows what would have happened? I don't know. But the fact that it was more riding on it, the fact that there was more riding on it because we played them so close to the end of the season, it meant that we were so much behind them and we knew what we had to do. Because that game, probably, there was lots of things that could have happened afterwards. So that might not been the predictor towards the end of the season, like how it was being where it was. So again, these things happen. Call it luck, call it a bit of, what divine intervention, whatever it is. It's worked in our favor. And I'm so effing glad because we smashed them. Anyway, right. This is what I wanted to just get onto the last point. There's top 4 now. We could touch on the Norwich game, but again, that wasn't in doubt for me. This kind of like talk about Spursy this, Spursy that. I said, we've got Antonio Conte. You're telling me this guy has won championships without pressure. He's won it with having people on his case. You think he's going to let the worst team in Premier League history, probably one of the worst teams I've seen, whose goal scoring record was terrible. I think they'd conceded 13 goals and scored 1 in their last 5 up to the point they played us. Do you honestly believe that this team's going to beat us, even get a draw against us? And there's people saying, oh, well, I was like, fuck that. We're going to bust them up too. I didn't think it was going to be 5-0, but I knew we were going to win. So this Spursy tag, is it a case now? And I said, the top one, what the point I was trying to make, so I got a little bit excited there. The top 4, I've always kind of maintained, yes, it is great to get it, but it's not a trophy. I would have loved us to have won something. However, I now look back and I look forward and think to myself, right, we haven't got a trophy this season, but this top 4, because of the nature of Man United not making it, because of the nature of Arsenal, going through what they're going through with Arteta, because there's going to be changes at Chelsea, the top 2 are the top 2. We are in a really good position to kind of not necessarily cement this forever in a day, but certainly with the manager that we've got, maintain with him a good degree of being in that top 4. And now we have a good opportunity to get a trophy as well. So this top 4 thing, although, again, if I'm honest with you, I'd rather have a trophy, but I know the importance of it. How much do you think it's going to allow us to do going forward, the immediate future of Spurs? I'll start with you, Chris. What's the immediate future of Spurs looking like now that we've got this top 4 and we've got Conte and we've got Son and likely to have Kane and these other players that are coming in?
Well, I think top 4 was massive this season, just because when he took over, top 4 was kind of a distant dream. There was so much work to be done. The signings of Kulusevski and Bentancur have been unbelievable. And then next season with Bentancur and Højbjerg there, you've got Skip to come in as well. So you've got competition for places, unless obviously he buys some more and then plays 3 in the middle. But I think it's told people now that you listen to other rival fans, they're worried about Tottenham now. And that was before this £150 million business. So this is Conte, who not far off of winning a Serie A with Inter, goes to Tottenham. You saw what happened with Jose, the only club he hasn't won a trophy with. Conte, he's got them in the top 4, got them playing some superb stuff. Now we've got money. So I think it's going to attract a lot of people to Tottenham if Conte wants them. And I think, obviously, we haven't won a cup this year, but I think we will next year. And I think Conte's done so much there in terms of putting Spurs back on the map again, and people take us seriously now. We were laughing stocks in the last season of Poch to an extent, and then up until Conte's really got going. So I think we're now seen as a kind of rival. Where we won't win the league. I'll be amazed if we got anywhere close to Liverpool or City, but never say never. But I think we'll definitely get third next year.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying third because of Chelsea's possible demise.
Well,
but we've
I
also
think even
got
if Chelsea were there, but I think we're definitely on for winning the cup, having a good cup run. And we saw in 2019, you never know what can happen in the Champions League.
Yeah.
But I think we're a serious threat again now. And with the extra signings that he's bound to make, and he should be making with that money, how much money he gets is another thing. I think we can really, really, really cause not a stir, but really cause some damage and do some really good stuff. And I'm not convinced, but I think there's a real good chance of winning the cup next year. I think the league is slightly too far out because those two are too far ahead. But I definitely think FA Cup, League Cup, and you never know with the Champions League.
Don't forget, the season is a weird season next season. There's 5 subs. That's one thing. 5 subs are going to be in it. Break halfway through. You know, we're going to start a little bit earlier. So pre-season is going to be slightly adapted. You know, there's going to be obviously a load of change. We've already seen Ten Hag coming in. We don't know what's going to happen at Chelsea. So I expect Man United to be better because they've got a better manager. They'll probably have better players because they'll get rid of some of them.
I think they've still got big problems at Man United.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
They need a bigger clear out than we do. And Mike,
100%.
We need a big one. And they've got owners, again, who just aren't listening to the managers.
But what I will say, though, Chris, is in the same way we had Nuno and we were terrible, you get the right appointment. Even with the players that you've got there, you can make them better. And that's my thoughts, his process is he can make them better. Even with the shit that they've got there, he can make them better. And to be fair, they're 6? They're 11 points, 12 points off us, 13 points. That isn't too much of a gap as opposed to 20 odd points to the top two. So, you know, it could be interesting.
I always thought with Rangnick, it's always a risk when you have an interim manager because the players who aren't playing, so what do I care? In 6 months, he's gone. I'll just play for the new manager, won't I? And that's kind of what's happening. You look at Lingard, who's apparently the kind of mole who's giving away the dressing room stuff.
He looks like a mole. He does look like a mole. If you look at his facial features, he's got mole features.
But, you know, that comes from, well, he's only here for 6 months, isn't he? What do I care? I'll just play for the new manager. And I don't think the interim manager really, really works in that respect. And I think
you know what, guys? I was going to say on that thing, it's difficult to get managers halfway through the season. Obviously, they missed out on Conte, which was the worst decision Man United made recently. But a lot of these, like the best players, the best managers, just see out there, you know, where they are. So I think United with Rangnick just brought in a Nuno style, just see what we can do, roll the dice, and it proved to be a bad decision. Maybe Rangnick, you know, is obviously pals with his German. Pochettino. They were waiting for obviously Ten Hag, and they were seeing what happens with other managers in Germany, etc. But I think Man United didn't want to make another bad decision after Oli because they'd come second with Oli, and they were falling apart. They had to get it right. There was too much pressure on them. So I think from a United point of view, I think Rangnick was just come in and steady the ship whilst we get the next guy who's going to be here for 4, 5, 6, 7 years, hopefully. But how they missed out on Conte, oh my God, they must be. Gary Neville says he's not a United man. Well, he's a winner. So what more is there to that? Do you know what I mean? If he's a winner, he's a winner. Whether he's a winner with a certain different way, if you're a club that cares just about winning, then you want him, you know. So
but it's not just about winning. Look at his style of play. Look at the goals he's scored and the goals he's not conceded. The defense is improved at Spurs, and we've outscored most teams. You know, we've been knocking in 3s, 4s, and 5s in a lot of the games against some of the lesser opposition, and we haven't conceded that many goals. I know in that early part we were having those 2s and 3s, but if you look at the record of Conte, even the games that we've lost. Now I know you look back at the Southampton, that 3-2 loss was not a good one. The Wolves game again, that wasn't a good loss. But we narrowly lost to Brighton team who had already beaten Arsenal the week before in North London. So that was, again, we looked at it as a really disappointing result because we were on the back of 4 wins on the trot at that point. We were holding to Brighton. So that was the disappointment for me. But the fact that Brighton could do that because they play good football shows you the league is not an easy league. But look, going back to my point, Conte has scored lots and lots of goals and doesn't concede many. So what team has got the right to say, oh, he's going to cause this? That's what you want. You want your team to score
I think
goals.
what it is, Sam, is the ruckus he causes behind the scenes with the board is what United were worried about in terms of somebody coming in and not being a puppet like Ollie was. And Ragnick was a puppet. You know, he just went in there a little bit towards the end. He started letting a little bit of a truth out. But, you know, these puppets will go to United. Is Ten Hag a puppet? We'll soon find out. You know, is he going to... I think a lot of managers will go to Man United just to experience the Premier League. And then they know they can get another job off the back of it because of that, at least understood the Premier League, which is a job in itself before you even manage a team. It's just understanding.
Can you imagine that people are using Man United as a stepping stone? That's mad.
I think he could go the opposite way though, and like Joe said, I think he could be too get out of my sight, too aggressive, and then alienate players that way. But I mean, it's a weird one, United, because of what Sir Alex Ferguson did. Every single manager that goes there, same with Arsenal as well. Every single manager that goes there is going to be compared to Alex Ferguson, and he's the best manager that's ever been in my life.
Yeah, but these guys couldn't even tie his shoelace, let alone be compared to him right now.
No, yeah, and I think
Man United are going to go through what Liverpool went through, I think.
Yeah, you've got a lot of fans now as well. Alex Ferguson was there, 26 years or something like that? And that was about 4 years ago. You've got a lot of fans there who only know Alex Ferguson, so therefore only know winning. And now they're playing absolute tripe and absolute rubbish. So they're going to be... This is Man United. It was in Man United, even Alex's early tenure and before him. But yeah, always going to be compared. Same with Arsenal. Arsene Wenger, whether we like it or not, put Arsenal on the map. They were mid-table nothingness before he turned up. He stuck them on the map, and then they've obviously regressed a little bit, which is fantastic. But yeah, they're always going to be compared to him, and yeah, even Pep would be compared to Sir Alex Ferguson, although Pep would probably get a tune out of those players, and he's got the money to be able to get in the players that he wants, but. Yeah, Ten Hag will be very interesting, very interesting. The Dutch league is very, very different to the Premier League.
I agree. I think the difference between, I was just mentioned earlier that I think Man United are probably going to go through the similar thing that Liverpool did when they come off the back of the 80s and then went into the Premier League era. But the difference with Man United and say the likes of Liverpool then, and maybe even Arsenal you can compare them to after Arsene Wenger, is their commercial appeal and the money that they've got behind them. Yeah. That's the difference. Liverpool never really had that much money, and even now with the FSG, they still have to operate sensibly. Man United, as we've seen, the money they've spent even after Alex Ferguson is not sensible because they spent upwards of £1 billion already.
But that's not always the best thing because it's spending wisely. Pep has a plan at City. Mm-hmm. I want these type of players, so they only go and buy those players. Man United have had about 15 different managers, since my last birthday. And so they go and buy all of these players because they can, and then a new manager comes in and half the players aren't fit for them. So they then go and buy another load of players.
Just what I wanted to add to that, at some point, even with that scattergun approach, they might get it right. You know what I mean? Because they can keep doing this, they can keep spending, and eventually something will, we've got the right man. Oh shit, we've now got 2 or 3. Right, now we've got it right. And that's the thing with Man United, and it won't take too many seasons for that to happen because they can literally throw money at it. Whether or not they will get there, I don't know. Time will tell.
Do you know what, guys? On Man United, I was going to say this. The pundits, because they're one of the most talked about clubs in the world because of their history, because of the amount of United fans, the amount of plastic fans coming out the woodwork and hiding every year, because they've got so many fans, right? And they're always talked about on Sky and everything. They almost are. They are of their own undoing. You look at the Nevilles, the Roy Keanes, the Scholesies, all on TV, the media guys. You look at the fans. They just need to stop living and expecting anything to do with that whole Fergie era. They just need to stop that. And almost Ten Hag needs to be told, even if you finish 10th next season, we'll let you carry on. Because there's so much that needs to be undone before he can even go in there. He needs to strip it down completely and then rebuild from the bottom up, because you can't expect Man United, as a fan of Man United or a pundit that talks about Man United, you can't expect to talk about how it used to be and where they should be today. Why should they be anywhere near the top today if the players are not willing to fight? Why should there be? Football is a fair sport. Just because you're the biggest brand in football doesn't mean you deserve to be at the top. Just because you had the biggest history in terms of winning trophies doesn't mean you have to be at the top. That was then. They just need to stop and start again. I'm fed up of these United fans. We should be top 4. Why should tell me why you should be top 4?
You know what
why
it is,
should you?
Josh?
Yeah, why should you be top 4? You shouldn't be top. Why? So what? So what? So Brighton should always be in the bottom 5, yeah. And is that how it's going to be? That's the ESL, mate, where there's no competition.
And this is the point, because of the money that's in the Premier League. 10 years ago, probably that was the case. You could probably be a really rubbish Man United and you'll always be in the top 4. You could be a really rubbish City and probably be in the top 4, even though 10 years ago they weren't what the level they are now. But you know the point I'm trying to make. The league wasn't as competitive because of the money that keeps rolling in and rolling in and rolling in. Every team, we've seen it. Teams don't have to sell players. Certain teams now that down in the we try to go after certain players and you can't get them because the teams don't know. We're not.
Sam, it's not even that. How many top teams buy how many the Man Cities? Yeah, Man City bought Grealish, one off. Liverpool got Mane from Southampton, right, a few years ago. But now it's getting hard to pick those best players and bring them up from the top, from the mid-table teams. We used to be that selling club when we used to sell to Man United.
They're still out there, though. Josh, they're still out there. Lone players are still out there. But what I think it is, some of the scouting, I'm talking about Spurs here. I don't think our scouting, that we've talked about this in other shows, our scouting network has been pants. We've got to get it right. You can think, if we can get Romero in during the summer, and then just look at January, Kulusevski and Bentancur, that's 3 players who considerably improved our starting 11. Now, they weren't being talked about. I know Romero, obviously, in Sierra was touted, and there's talk about Kulusevski going to Arsenal. So he was on radars of people, but nobody was like, oh, yeah, we have to get them players in because if we don't, so get it right, and we can still unearth gems. And there's talk about
Sam, it's harder to buy from clubs below you now in the Premier League.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They don't have to
agree with that. 100%.
So these United days of winning trophies, when you just went and picked up the 5 best players below you, them days are gone. You can't now call up, Wolves and say, there you go, there's some money, I want your best player. You can't call up West Ham and say, give me your best player. Tottenham, give me your best player. I'm Man United. It's Sir Alex Ferguson on the phone. I'll meet you at the airport. It doesn't work like that anymore. And they need to wake up and smell the coffee. They need to get their recruitment right, like you just said. That is the biggest area now in football. It's never been so important. Recruitment is everything at the moment.
100%. And the other thing that's getting stronger, which seems to be, is I know player power has always been in the game, but if you notice, there's going to be a whole lot of free transfers this summer. Players are now holding out for they're on their deals. They're not being forced by clubs to make signatures, and they're not being forced by clubs to get out of the club. So if you want to sell me, like Aubameyang is a good example, Ozil's another good example, and you could even probably put someone like Tanguy and Ndombele in that sort of, I'm on this amount of money, you can send me out on loan. Send me out alone. I'm coming back this season. What are you going to do then? You can't force these players out. You can try and put them into the reserves. You can do all that. Ultimately, you need to get them off the books if you're paying them extortionate wages, which we've seen when we get caught into that trap. It's very difficult to get out of. So again, all these factors now play into getting the decision right. You get that decision right, you're really onto a winner. I know we've made loads of mistakes, but I am seeing that light. That light is there, lads. We're getting some light. Anyway, this is what I want to do. Just get your final thoughts on rounding up the season and what you think we're in store for next season. What's your thoughts? What do you think we can achieve for next season? Chris, start with you.
In terms of last season, I think you summed it up pretty well, that you saw a roller coaster on fire. It's been absolutely crazy. But yeah, I mean, Levy deserves credit for acting quickly, whether it was because of the fans booing him or whatever, or it was already in place. But getting Conte quickly, less than 4 days after Nuno was fired, and then listening to Conte and Conte getting Levy to listen to get Bentancur and Kulusevski has been a revelation. And there's no doubt that those two have, like you say, Sam, improved our first 11 along with Romero, who came in the summer immensely. And those factors have been a huge factor in us getting top 4. So yeah, I mean, started off as a bit of a nightmare and then ended up as a lovely dream. And yeah, next season with this 150
not as lovely
million.
as Josh's dream, not as lovely as Josh's North London derby dream.
This was a very dry dream. This was. But yeah, and next season with that 150 million, if that can be spent wisely, and we've shown with Kulusevski and Bentancur, you don't have to spend 100 million to get a good player. You just need a player who fits your system. And that comes from the manager. The manager knows how he wants to play, and Conte now knows he's an experienced manager, knows how he wants to play. He'll know now what players are on his list, and he'll have, these are the players I want. If you can't get them and they turn you down, these are the players I want instead. He'll have that list that goes to Levy, Paratici, whoever. Their job to go and get them. Conte's told you, get me these players. That's the players I want. They fit into my system. I think, like you made a good point, Sam, with a lot of people on frees, I think there'll be quite a lot of free transfers. Like I said, I think Everton will come back. But yeah, definitely next season, I think there's no doubt that our squad is going to be strengthened. And with the 5 subs in the Premier League, the 4 competitions, and one of them, certainly the domestic ones, I think we can go all the way. I honestly think we can win a cup next year. And I think we'll comfortably qualify for Champions League via the league again. And then you never know about the Champions League. But yeah, I'm genuinely excited about next season and that 150 million, and the fact that Conte seems to be, based on what he said anyway, you've got to take what he said as true, that Levy listened to him in January, and the 2 signings we made in January have basically got us Champions League. So yeah, I mean, it's always the way, isn't it? You're always really, really excited. I've got a couple of friends who are West Ham fans before the start of the season. Oh, yes. No. So I'm setting myself up for a big fall, but I'm legitimately excited about next season, about what we can achieve.
100%. And I'm the same. I was only messing about by trying to tempt you. If you'd have seen me before the last few games, I was chest out there. I didn't care. I was going to get clipped up, but I knew. So I'm the same. I just think now, some of the points you made, again, brilliant. The other thing I just wanted to touch on was regarding the top 2. We've seen this season, Liverpool, Manchester City, people attacking them as 2 of the best teams in the world. They've certainly proved by winning almost everything this season. They've won, City won a league. Obviously, the 2 domestic cups have been won by Liverpool. Likelihood is that Liverpool probably will win the Champions League unless something occurs with Real Madrid can do it. They might do. So those 2 teams have won everything. Those 2 teams Man City didn't take any points off us, and Liverpool, didn't get 6 points. Took 2. We took 2 off them. They don't want to play us. Conte. Klopp's already said it's going to be difficult against them. Tuchel's already said, he knows it's our way of playing. None of those teams apart from Chelsea, but I think he'll sort that out come next season. It's just sorting out the other teams now, because tactically we can play any team with that 3-4-3 system, going back into that 5-4-1 defensive shape and having the patience and breaking. We can play counter-attack. We can see we can play with the ball. We've seen that in the last couple of games. We saw that in the North London derby. I know they went down to 10 men, but we still had the degree of control. I'm looking forward to how we play against the likes of an Aston Villa, a Wolves, an Everton, even though Everton struggle, a Leicester City. I'm not so much bothered about Manchester United. I'm not so much bothered about City or Liverpool. It's them other teams where maybe the pressure of not having to perform at the level that we would do against Liverpool is a little bit less. How do we perform? Is the mentality there? The mentality has got to be spot on. And I think that's 100% been improved. We bring in certain players with that equal mentality. Wow. I think we can have a really good season.
Sam, Josh, I was going to say, you mentioned that Liverpool and Man City, they came onto us, right? And we like that. Spurs like a team that comes onto them because we can play that open, expansive football. I think the one weakness and the one area that Conte will be aware of is your Brightons, your Brentfords.
I think that's why Eriksen will come in. I don't think Eriksen will play all the games, but I think he'll certainly start against those teams because he can speed it up, he can slow it down, and one of the best things he did when we had him, Dembele, was with it as well, is when we conceded a goal, those 2 got on the ball, the other team didn't have it for 5 minutes, all their momentum stopped. Whereas previously, in the last couple of years since he left, we concede a goal, it's the Alamo coming at us, we're under pressure. So I think someone like him will come in to help with those lesser teams. But yeah. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, that's one. I wanted to get Josh's final thoughts and what he's looking forward to next season and how far he thinks we can go.
I think top 4 has got to be minimum next season, Sam. I think if we could just freeze every single player, change a couple in that first 11, Emerson, improve him, improve on him or improve him, but we keep the front 3, we keep the middle as it is with Højbjerg and Bentancur. You can even keep Cesc on the left. He's improved. Ben Davies and Dyer haven't really put a foot wrong, and Romero's just been world class with Hugo behind him. So I think if you could just freeze these players and you could just keep that team, then you're confident to go out there and finish third, to even give the Man Cities and Liverpools a run for their money. Potentially, if those players had the energy and the legs and stayed injury free. But we know that's not going to be the case. We know there's going to be injuries. We know there's Wednesday night football against the best defenders, midfielders. Spurs are going to get the runaround from certain teams on a Wednesday night, and then they're going to have to turn up on the weekend and do it again. So with that in mind, we're now in the VIP section. We now need to maybe add some shoes to the wardrobe, add some new jeans. We need to dress the part a bit. We need to realize that we're in the big time now. It's great celebrating top four, but there's a whole different game of maintaining it and having a run in the Champions League to get the money, to give these players the recognition they want. The Sons and Kanes, they want a run in the Champions League. They're not here just to enter the competition. They want to participate and be there in February, March, and have those great nights under the lights at the Lane and go away to all the big teams across Europe. So we're now sitting at the main table. Arsenal are like kids in our rearview mirror. West Ham, see you later. Man United, see you later. Leicester have disappeared. We're now here. We're at the front of the table. So for us, it's important to invest, right? And this is the whole thing about Conte's demands on the board is, look, I will stay because I see the future and I see it's bright, but not with the current set of players I've got. Yes, the current set of players are great, but I need to improve on that. And with the 5 subs, which we've mentioned a few times now, that's going to be key in changing games. Imagine the likes of Liverpool and Man City bringing on 3 or 4 quality class players that can change a game, like the Diaz's and Yotas have been doing recently. So we're going to need those 2 or 3 game changers off the bench, and I'm not sure Stevie B and Lucas Moura are going to be those players. I'm not sure Joe Rodon and Harry Winks are going to be those players. So the game changing players are going to be the ones that help us maintain that top 4 race and stay in the Champions League. And at the moment, when I look at our bench, I don't see much changing. I don't see many game changes at all, to be honest, guys. I kind of look at it and I'm kind of thinking, apart from Lucas Moura and Bergwijn, where are we really going with it? So a lot of investment, but the opportunity is huge to really dine with the elite now for the next 3 or 4 years, especially with the likes of Kane and Son and Kulu. The template's there, man. We just need to back it up now, and the future's looking really bright.
Yeah, I think the quality off the bench will come in the summer because this is the manager Conte. If we won the League Cup and finished 4th next season, he'd be furious because we haven't improved our league position. He's not a manager who settles for finishing 4th. He doesn't settle for finishing 2nd, does he? So he'll be looking, regardless of what we say and what is likely, he'll be looking to challenge those top 2 in the league.
But Chris, what I'll say, he's realistic because he knows that the gap, he said he's maintained so many times. He's talked about Manchester City, Liverpool being on a different stratosphere. He's even said that about Chelsea when we lost to them 3 times in a row or whatever it was, that the gap between those teams was so immense that he's realistic. He knows he can cut that gap, but to go from 20 odd points now to say we could be 2 points behind Man United come the end of the season. Man City and Liverpool. That's going to take a lot if we're going to maintain a Champions League front as well. Because I think,
that's what he says to the press, but to the players, he'll probably be saying stuff like, "If this was just a league with you, Liverpool and City, you're joint top. You ain't bottom." So
I like that.
And then bring in the like the Ericssons for free, or the extra players to give that impetus and change and off the bench. And, if we can get a way to find a way to beat the teams who sit back, because we're perfectly suited to beat those teams like Man City and Liverpool. Obviously, we didn't beat Liverpool, but we should. But they come at us, we've got a way of playing. I think certainly that last 4 games, like I said, the difference of playing and I think huge that is, because it shows Conte can trust those players to play different ways. I think that midfield, Skip, he'll be delighted that we got Champions League and Bentancur has been a great signing. He'll also be furious because he'll probably think, well, I'm better than him. And all that's going to do...
That's what we want. That's what you want.
Yeah, and all that's going to do is encourage him to train harder, and when he gets his chance, play better and force his way back in. And that can only be a good thing, getting players to force their way into... Which is exactly what Kulu did. Bentancur didn't have to force his way that much because it's against Harry Winks, but I think he'll probably be off. But Kulu, it was Mora or Bergwijn, and Kulu has just made that place his own now by forcing his way in, and that can only be a good thing. And Skip could be a beast next season. I'd expect Skip to be pretty much spending the summer at a gym and move in.
Like what Dele Alli did, and he had some shoulders, but look what happened to him. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but I think it's real bright if we can get those 5-6 players. I think a lot of them, or a few of them, will be free. I don't think any will be like about 50-60 million, because Kulu and Bentancur have shown you don't need that. You just need players that you can scout well and fit into your system. There's a lot of free players out there.
Even if you structure your deals such that you've got long-term loans, like what we've done with Kudashev, it's all about structuring, because the money's there, but you've got to be clever, because you can get into bidding wars. You can suddenly start getting into Jack Grealish 100 million. Is he worth 100 million? Probably not. But long term, they're probably going to get that money back because of what they're going to achieve. So we have to think in the same way. If you're going to spend 100 million, like you're going to pay them 250 grand a week, you've got to look at a business. You've got to recoup that money somehow via success. You can't just be paying out this money and not have it coming back.
That's the tricky balance, isn't it? Because if you try and say, right, I'll buy a player at 21 years old, we done well with Kulusevski and Bentancur. But if you buy a player at 21 years old that hasn't got the Juve Champions League title winning experience, how are they gonna survive mentally in the Champions League? They've never played in it, but they're 21 years old, and we're trying to get our value from them by doing a resale. Now we've got to stop buying these young potentials. You've got to mix it up. You need some young potentials, because you need to invest in the future whilst you're in the present. But you also need to bring in the experience that have played in the Champions League, that have won titles in the domestic league. So if this summer we don't mix it up and we just go for youngsters and potentials, then we need to live in potential, which means we start living in 2025. But Kane doesn't want a potential playing with him.
And neither does Conte. Conte is challenging next season.
I'm sure he said, hasn't he, that you need older players. I'm sure he said something along those lines. Conte.
But look at Bentancur and Kulusevski, guys. Look at their careers before they came to Tottenham. There's no coincidence that they slotted straight in, because they've come from a big pressure cooker, so they know what it's like.
Correct. And that's what I think we are. As much as people feel, oh, you Spurs, you ain't won nothing, yours. It's the pressure, because we've seen so many players, even managers, come through at Spurs and they are brilliant, and then they come to Spurs and whatever it is, and it's got to be down to pressure, the mentality within the club, it's the expectations, whatever it is, and they seem to wilt. These two players have done the opposite. They've gained. Romero's done the opposite. He's improved. It's like they've grown bigger. Certain players now we've seen, hold on a minute, well, if they can do it, they've only just come here, I can do it. And that's what it is. It's up here. Football is up here. Most things are up in your mind to get the success that you desire.
And also what Conte's done as well, very quickly, is he's shown that if you do perform, you'll get your chance. Pochettino, one of his big mistakes, Lucas Moura gets a hat-trick in our biggest game and then he gets dropped because Kane's back. So that would subconsciously possibly say, well, if you're in a position where we've got someone better, it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to be dropped. Whereas Conte has given the chances to Sessegnon, he's given it to Doherty. All right, he got injured, but then he could have put Tanganga or someone else on the right side. He's given Emerson the chance. He could have put Rodon in instead of Sanchez. He's given Sanchez a chance. Same with Davies. Same with Bentancur, Kulusevski, and they've all taken their chance. So and that can only be good in training as well. It's like, right, okay, if I improve in training and show myself in training, I'll get my chance. If I take my chance on the pitch, I stay in the team and he'll give me a fair crack.
That's why someone like Gareth Bale, that's why someone like Gareth Bale might not be a Conte fit, because if he's not going to do it in training, like some of the players are saying, this man wouldn't turn up in training when he was with us last season. I'm not sure Conte's the kind of manager to say, right, you're starting on the weekend, even though you've not put it in training, just because you're Gareth Bale. So, that's probably what we need now. We don't need any prima donnas. And, the likes of Bale, if they're going to come and not train, then we don't want them. It's as simple as that. Even Tanguy's going to come back. We don't want him if he's not going to train. And we don't want...
I think he'll be in the reserves, though.
Yeah, well, we need to do something with maybe Danny Rose in, but we need to correct our mistakes very quickly, because by hanging on to these mistakes for Tanguy, it's affecting the dressing room, man. And this dressing room's so positive now. Look at the players, look at the reactions, look at the smiles, the energy, everything's so positive. The last thing we need is someone like Tanguy walking into that club and start doing we
might have
that's another reason.
On him.
That's another reason I think Eriksen could come, because of obviously what happened to him. Just playing football and training is a gift for him. he obviously knows the club. He knows a lot of the players, so there won't be any kind of integration into the club for him because it's essentially like coming home. And like I say, off the bench or starting for the first 45 against your Brightons and teams like that who sit back. And then, all about the squad. So I think our squad will look massively different come the start of next season. I think it'll be massively different in a very, very positive way.
Can't wait. Right, before we wrap this show, I hope too. I'm going to give a shout out. I'm going to give a shout out to those viewers. Thank you, all those who've stayed with us. We've had over 50 odd of you watching, still 40 of you with us now. Make sure you smash that like button. Big shout out to David Clark, who's watching. Lloyd Hughes is there watching us. Thank you. Kevin Murray joined us today. We've got Neptune and Mystic. Also, Paul Pablo. Thank you, Mike. Hotspur Hustler, why are you not on the stream? But anyway, that's another story. Mike, I know you're busy. Oh, no. Dave Clark, James Kingsworth is in the house as well. Who else have we got? We've got THFC 14, Colin Lumsden, the regular, Jules Vegas. Welcome, Jules. Like the hoodie that you've got. Paxton Road hoodie. I haven't got mine on today, but there's Paxton Road hoodies available, people. Don't forget about them hoodies. Quick plug there. Alexander Hilton, I mentioned there. Ellie, load, Seb Shah as well. Thank you all for your comments. It's been really, really good. I'm going to come to my special guest. I'm going to start with you, Josh. Where can the viewers find you? Let them know.
I'm not going to say home again, Sam, because you know what? I don't want to wear it thin, mate. So you can find me on YouTube on Spurs Debate TV, and you can find me on Spurs Debate UK on Twitter. But do subscribe to this channel if you ain't already. Hit the like and support this great channel and support Sam and the boys because they're doing a great job.
Thank you very much. We always get the free plugs as well. So that's what, Chris, you've seen how it rolls now. You know, you've got to do the free plug at the end for us. So where can the viewers find you, Chris?
Otherwise, you ain't coming back, Chris. You ain't coming back, mate.
So Let's Talk Tottenham is my channel on YouTube. So you can find that there at L Talk Tottenham on Twitter for all the information there as well. Yeah, please give a like and subscribe, but not before you hit like and subscribe on Paxton Road TV. Brilliant channel. Been on here a few times. Great channel. So, yeah, make sure you hit that like and subscribe and then go to Josh's channel as well. Do the same.
Cheers, bro.
You know what I feel like?
Yeah,
I feel like
thanks again for having me on. Been
no
really
worries.
Great.
I can't remember who it is, but it's Daniel Levy's brother-in-law, isn't it? The one who stands and he's like, he waits for players to come on. That's what I feel like. Standing in the back and just watching. Yeah? You better say something. All right. That's how I am. Anyway, Paxton Road TV. Thank you very much for supporting us throughout the whole of this season. We will be doing plenty through the summertime. Talking Point's going to have a little bit of a break. It's going to come back beginning of July, but don't worry. We're going to have plenty of summer specials. We talked about a lot of managers last season. We don't have to do that this season, which is good, hopefully. Again, hopefully. Don't do anything silly, Conte. We've got to have plenty of speculation. So look out for Artsid with the transfer specials. Judge Jodi is going to be doing player ratings for games that we'll go for our preseason games and all the rest of that stuff. So there's loads and loads to look out for. And as these guys have said, make sure you smash a like on Paxton Road TV. Go across once you've done that to both Spurs Debate TV and Let's Talk Tottenham and hit the like button. Subscribe to their channels as well. These guys will be back regularly and it's been a pleasure. It has been, as you were saying, Chris, we talked about it's going to be nearly an hour and 40 minutes, but it didn't feel like it. It felt really, really good because we're in fourth place. Oh, he's gone. Back to me and you, Josh. We're in fourth place. I'm going to add him back. I think he's still here. Oh, he's there. He's still there.
I've got internet issues. It keeps going down for some reason. Virgin did some
relegated.
Virgin did some stuff to improve the service, and it's been crap ever since.
We were just saying it feels good to do this because we're in fourth place, and it feels even better because them lot, for the 6th year in a row, are finished below us. And I've got some money to collect from a few, at least one.
What's this, guys? What's this? Oh, wait. That's a bottle.
No.
Yeah.
You can't do that. You're not supposed to do that, Josh, because, you know, they were doing this. That's what they were doing. They were ready to explode. Anyway, last comment. Great show. Cheers, guys. Thank you, Lloyd. Thank you very much. It has been a really good show. It has been an eventful season that has ended well. I would say it's ended well. Success is measured success. I would say success for me is I want to see silverware, but this is a form of success that can lead us to further and better things in the future, which I hope it does, because that's what it's all about. So again, thank you very much, Josh. Thank you very much, Chris. That is it. look out for Talking Points, as I said, at the beginning of July, but look out for all the rest of the stuff that we're going to be doing through the summer. Guys, where is the music to take us out? The new music to take us out is all right as well. I like it. Anyway, thank you for watching. See you later.